All right. Hey, good morning, kids. What's up? It's Friday. Makes you happy, doesn't it? Well, I mean, it should. It does me. Of course, every day makes me happy. I'm kind of that guy. But yeah, it's going to be a great day. Just got to hug my firefighter son before he heads out. I won't see him for 5 days. He works so much these days. But man, life's good, isn't it? Hope you got family that you're loving on and they love you back, and hope you got a lot of friends who do that. So, hey, today we're jumping into round three of love. I hope you're not tired of this yet. I think it's so important that we have this conversation, and I kind of saved this last section for today just to have more of a little laid back conversation, I guess, about love and why it's so powerful and so important. uh, John reminds us, really, it's the age old truth. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. Love your neighbors yourself. The Ten Commandments, the first four of those commandments were all about loving God. The last six of those commandments were all about loving our neighbor and how that's practically done. So from beginning to end, these are the two commandments that God's given to us, and consequently, they're the two assurances that we have that we know Him, that we are His, that we're saved. How do I know I'm saved? How can I have that confidence? Well, because I love God. Well, how do you love God? Because everybody says, "Oh, I love God." Well, yeah, but I love Him and I follow His commandments. I want to please Him. I want to do what He says. I love the Tamster with all my heart. So when I find that there's something that she wants, I try to do whatever I can to make that happen. Not to earn her love, but because I love her, and that's what it means to keep His commandments. When you and me have this passion to keep His commandments and to obey Him, we demonstrate that we are have fellowship with God. And then when we love others, we demonstrate that we love Him because He loves others. And so that this is the essence, really. If we boil everything down to how do we know that we're a believer, it comes down to several things, but those two are crucial pieces. And so today, let's just jump into this. He says in verse 19, now we've already looked and explored the reality of love and how powerful it is. And he gives this statement, God is love. That's powerful to understand. And so then he asks this question. We love, our statement, we love because He first loved us. Let that sink in. We awaken as a dirty, rotten, stinking little sinner. That's how we are born. Dirty, rotten, stinking little sinner. Self-absorbed. Curse of the sin is on us. And so we live our life self-absorbed. And so we don't truly love. I mean, we brotherly love, like we've been talking about, right? We erotica like type love. We emotionally love things, like we like things. But true love, the agape love, the love that loves not for anything that you can receive, but simply because it's in you, that only comes from Christ. Only Christ followers can love to that degree. Only them. Nobody else. And I don't care how many people tell you that's not true. That's the only way. God is love. If you don't have God in you, you can't love effectively. It's a lesser love. So he says we love because He first loved us. Um, until you and me recognize the reason why we don't necessarily sense God loves us is because we're not totally honest about our own sin. Arrogance will keep us from recognizing that God is love. Those who, in fact, Jesus told the story uh, of he was at one of the Pharisees' houses, and in comes a woman, and she begins to anoint His feet, and she begins to wash it, dry it with her hair, and the Pharisees kind of going off on him, and he goes, "Hey, listen, she has been loved large and forgiven large, and so she will love large back." And he told the Pharisee, he said, "I've been here the whole time. You haven't done anything for me." Because the Pharisee didn't see his need for God. So what we have to do is be aware. It's my pride that keeps me from loving others. That's what it is. It's my pride because I haven't yet felt the love of God. When you were a brand new believer and you had confessed your sin and you had felt the love of God come in you, it was overwhelming, wasn't it? I mean, it was an experience like nothing else. And then over the course of your life, as you see that, that's what happens. And so, until we know the depth of our sin, see, I have come to have to realize my own sin. And when I do, and I'm aware of the love of the Father, it wrecks me. If you've seen and felt the love of God, you can't help but love others. If you're struggling right now with loving others, it's because you've never seen God. This is what he says. We love because he first loved us. Whoever claims to love God yet hates his brother, you're a liar. For whoever does not love their brother and sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have not seen. And so this is what it is. So let me ask you this question. How have you felt the love of God? In your own life, how, practically speaking, how have you felt it? I don't mean, oh, well, he's forgiven me of my sins, which is incredible. I'm talking about a practical way in which you sense that. One of my favorite stories in the scriptures is Hagar. And Hagar, if you're familiar with her, was Sarah, Abraham and Sarah. Abraham's the father Abraham, right? He's kind of the beginning of the, not kind of, he is the beginning of the people of God, the Israelites, and of which now we have been grafted in. And he was promised a child, right? He and Sarah promised that God would give them, bless them with the child. And it didn't happen. And at 86 years old, Sarah says, well, here, look, at least take Hagar, my handmaid, and have sex with her, and we'll have offspring through her. So Abraham did so. Then when Hagar began to kind of, Sarah began to get jealous, she kicked Hagar out of the house. Genesis 13 records this. Picture this, because this is who we all are, just abandoned. She's been kicked out of the house. She's with child. She's a hand servant. She can't do anything else. Who's going to want one that's pregnant? Because they're no good to someone in doing work around the house and things like that. And so she's been kicked out. She's homeless. She's out in the wilderness, and God shows up. And he begins to speak to her, and he says, I've seen you, and I know your trouble, and I know what's going on. And I'm going to take that child of yours, and I'm going to make a great nation out of him. And Hagar, looks at him from this overwhelming love that in the midst of her, it feels like nobody knows who she is. God shows up. She says to him, you are the God who sees me. Really, it's the only place in the scriptures where someone gave God a name, and Hagar did that. Ironically, a few years later, as Isaac is born and Sarah gets jealous again, because God said, you going back to Abraham, I'm going to make him do right with you. And so she does. Well, a few years later, she's got a child now, and she gets kicked out again because Sarah gets mad. So she's out again, and she's got nothing, and she puts her son over on one side of the deal because she said, I cannot watch him die. And God shows up again, and he just lavishes her with love. I love that story. I love the fact that she sensed and experienced the love of God. And I would encourage you to take some time and reflect on when God showed himself to you in a way of love. I did that early this morning, and I went through several. I don't know how long I got to talk, but there was a time when our church that we had poured a lifetime in kind of began to implode. And anytime church does those things, it gets personal and it gets ugly, and people start saying all kinds of things about you. And so I had grown weary of that, and I had resigned from the church. It was late. I was in my little home on Old Springville Road. Tammy and I were there, and there was a knock on our door. I opened the door, and one of our young friends from young married days, Jack Rumore, showed up at our door. Light was off, turned the light on. Jack comes in. I'm like, man, what is he doing here? Because he's living in Tuscaloosa at this time. And he comes in, and he sits at our kitchen table, and he said, God sent me here to talk to you. He said, I don't know everything going on, but here's what I know. Here's what I know about you. And here's what and this is true of you. And don't you believe anything anybody else says. You're a good man, Randy Pardue, and you love people, and you're a servant of the Most High. I'm telling you, it was the craziest experience to feel the love of God, to know that he took a man an hour away from me and caused him to drive to my house to tell me a message from God that I desperately needed to hear. Not having a conversation with him overwhelms me. I could tell you story after story like that of people who had done that. I remember when Tammy and I had done our first children, we were youth pastors, early 80s. I'm barely 22 years old. We had our first parent-teacher parent-pastor kind of thing, and it went ugly. I mean, people wanted to parents can be crazy, and they want to blame you for all the problems in their kid's life. I'd barely been on the job 3 months, and they were mad because whatever music we were listening to or whatever, all that stuff. And the meeting was over. Tammy and I walked out of that little fellowship hall in Roebuck, and we were devastated. I looked at her, and I'm standing on this sidewalk, and it's just me and her. Everybody else is gone, and I'm thinking, I'm not doing this anymore. Saw the car lights come up the driveway and park right in front of that sidewalk, and Jerome and Barbara Barker got out of the car. Their child, Jay and Andrea, were in our youth ministry, and they walk up to the sidewalk, and they said, we had to turn around after this meeting because the Lord just wanted us to come back and tell you that you guys are good people, and we love you, and we're for you. See, when you have encounters like that, and you feel the love of God, you can't help but turn around and love other people. And I don't think we do that hard enough. I don't think that we spend the time thinking about those things like that. I remember at the same time that Jack had come, I remember going out into the woods in Trussville at Dead Dog Trail, my favorite place to sit and reflect. And I'm sitting on this rock, Tammy and I are, and we're overlooking the Cahaba River, and we're praying, and I just gently hear the voice of the Lord drift a thought into my head, and he says this. He says, and when you have returned, strengthen the brothers. I had given up on church. I was done with church. I loved God not so much as people. And that gentle reminder was that, hey, I know it's hard, and you're going to get out of this, and you're going to wake up, and I want you to go serve me again. I don't want you to quit the ministry yet. And God was faithful to me. There's so many stories. I remember my first encounter in India. I was staying at my friend Saji's home, who's hanging out with us today, and I woke up, and there was a man sitting in one of the beds in the same room that I was sleeping in, and he was sitting up, and he had his sheet over him, and he was just worshiping the Lord, and kind of a strange way to wake up in a strange land. I mean, I'd been traveling all night, and I'm worn out, and you get to bed, and you wake up, and here's this guy. And so when he pulled the blanket off, we introduced ourselves, and his name was Trilochin, and I noticed that he was battered and bruised, and so I began to converse with him and say, hey, so what happened? And he's got this incredible smile on his face. He had all these bruises all over his body. He said, well, I was out, and he began to tell me the story how he was sharing Christ with a Buddhist family, and that it was kind of a trap that they had laid for him because Trilochin was an evangelist of sorts, door to door. And anyway, they lured him into the home, and then they proceeded to gather people together, and they beat him. And as I'm listening to him talk, and I'm looking at all the bruises on his body, he looks at me and he smiles, and he goes, but that's nothing compared to what my Savior did for me, and I can't wait to get back out there. Thinking, see, what compels a person to want to go out into a world that hates his God in that Indian environment and continue to do it? Because he had felt the love of God. See, this is what I wanted us to slow down today long enough to be mindful of that, because it gets silly when you and I don't love other people. When we don't love other people, it's because we have never truly felt the love of God, because our American Christianity allows us to be so arrogant in our self-righteousness that we don't see the great love that God did from us, and from the depths of our depravity that he reached his hand down and he pulled us out of that miry muck of mess that we find ourselves in, and he cleans us off by the blood of Christ, and he sets us on solid ground, and he gives us hope in a future. See, and he forgives us for all my sins. He takes my sin, scatters them from the east to the west, throws them in the depths of the sea, never remembers them anymore, sent his son to die on a cross, and on that cross, he utters the word tetelestai. It is finished. The work of the cross is finished. The power and penalty of my sin is gone. See, if we understood that and quit trying to prop ourselves up on our good name and our goodness to others, and just to understand how overwhelming the love of God is, it's a game changer. We love people differently. And this is what John is telling us. Let me read it to you again. We love because he first loved us. Until you felt that love, you are incapable of loving. But when you felt that love and you repented of your sins, and the Spirit of the living God, who is love, poured in us, it's a game changer. He begins to clean our whole house out. He's in my heart, and he's cleaning every room. He's cleaning every crevice. He's pulling out every hatred, everything wrong in my life. He's drawing me toward purity, and a part of that is this lure to just love everybody that I come in contact with. This is the gospel. This is how we know. Whoever claims to love God, yet hates his brother and sister, you're a liar. That's what he says. So I'm going to ask you a hard question today. Do you love that? Do you love the brothers and sisters that are brought into your life? Do you love them? I don't mean do you tolerate them. I don't mean I'm trying. I mean, do you love them? If you don't, you have no assurance of your salvation. You're a liar. I'm not. Look, don't shoot the messenger. This is what John says. For whoever does not love their brother and sister whom they have seen can't love God who they haven't seen. Look, if you can't just love the people in front of you, how are you going to love a God that you have not yet seen? You can't. It's impossible. This is the gospel. And he has given us this command. Anyone who loves God must, not ought to try, not, every once in a while, not those that you like to love. He says anyone who loves God must also love their brother and sister. Man, isn't that a good word? I'm so glad it's Friday and we get to share in this truth. And so, Lord bless you. I hope you have a great day. You get out there and you love somebody. I'm telling you what's going to happen to you today. There's going to be somebody God brings into your life. I'm not a prophet. I just know truth. There's going to be someone that God brings into your life today, whether by phone or Facebook or face-to-face, that needs you to love them. Do it. All right? That's my encouragement to you today. Be safe out there today. Be bold out there today, and love hard out there today.